What up, bitch?
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, how's it going? So, Pogan, let me ask you a
Uh,
question.
uh-huh.
Yeah, Destiny's right. Huh?
What about the fucking thing? The you at the gas station or whatever?
Yeah, he's right. What exactly did it prove? Go ahead.
Oh, I don't know. It seemed pretty obvious the goal was just to get you upset. I don't know.
Oh, but I thought I was a pussy and I wasn't gonna show up. What happened?
I don't think I ever said you were a pussy and you weren't going to show up.
Okay, let's see exactly what you said, and we're gonna go off of that.
Sure.
Pogan.
Wait, just to clarify, is this what you wanted to talk
No,
about?
we're gonna talk about everything. Don't worry.
Okay. I'm
So here
glad
you
you're
go.
up
This
to
you
speed.
said this is not looking good for AK-47. What exactly is not looking good?
Oh, I don't know.
Why is your voice
Two
trembling?
two things were circled and you seemed pretty upset. That was the gist. You seem currently upset.
So is that the extent of your ability to analyze things beyond this? Like, is this your view of politics? And do you hold your understanding of politics and history and theory to the same criteria to which you claim I'm not looking good as a result of this picture?
Oh, I'd certainly hope not. There wasn't much analysis here. It's like very
But
obviously
this
a
was a
troll, right?
statement you made, right?
Yeah, it's correct. Yeah.
So this is a claim you made, right?
What was the claim?
The claim was that it's not looking good for me.
Well, I mean, you don't really need a lot of help doing that one.
Why isn't this looking good for me? What is Destiny saying here?
That depends. Do you want to start at the beginning or do you want to just talk about this particular thing? I'm really confused.
This is what it's about. It's not
Sure.
looking good for me because of these green circles. What about them?
Let me just get a little piece of gum here. My breath smells like shit. It's been a while since work.
Uh-huh.
2 seconds. Alrighty. So your question is, what's not looking good for you about the picture where the things are circled? Is that correct?
Yeah, correct.
Um, you're responding to a troll.
What but that's not what that picture was referring to. The picture was referring to the circles, that there's
I
an
don't give a fuck.
insignificance to that.
You're confused. I don't give a fuck what the picture's referring to. You're being
I'm
trolled,
confused.
right?
Wait. So now you're gonna backtrack. Well, that's actually not what you said in the replies, is it?
Well, I mean, it is the same picture, so it proves
No,
that,
it's not.
like,
Let's
bare
see.
minimum that. No.
Yeah,
Listen, what I
okay.
mean is the car. See the car over at the gas
So
station
now
behind you?
you're backpedaling. Now it's not about being baited by a troll. Now it's about the car.
Those two things are compatible, Haas.
Okay. So what is significant about this same car being here? What does that imply?
What I said, that the guy was there roughly around the same time. He at least went to the spot, right?
If he was there, is there a DM that proves he never left Chicago?
What am I, the NSA? I don't fucking know.
So it seems like your ability to interpret facts is at the very least somewhat flawed.
I mean, it seems like the primary intention was to get you upset. Are you denying that you're upset?
Wait, but how does it prove that he was there when it's just as plausible that someone else could have came and taken these photos and sent it to him? After all,
Let me just try to
he
clarify
was in
real
the
quick.
DMs with someone
Sure,
who
go ahead.
lives in the area who said they were going to come to film it.
Yeah. Let me just get clarity. Your reason for thinking that I have poor analytical skills is I quote tweeted something from Destiny
Yeah.
with like two things circled, which is obviously an attempt to like rile you up, which
No,
evidently this
you're
group.
attributing some kind of significance to the cars.
Well, yeah, I
So
stated what the significance of that
what
was.
is significant about the cars?
That the individual in question was roughly there around the same time. Unless you think he was photoshopping or like it's a fake picture somehow,
No,
which
wait, but hold on. That's why you have poor analytical skills, because there is nothing necessary or even likely about that conclusion.
you're saying he could have just gotten it off like what? Google Images? Is that your
No,
claim?
he was in. If you actually understood the breadth of evidence here, first of all, the time span in which he said he was coming from
Why do you
Chicago
take shit like this so
didn't
seriously?
lie, because I take very seriously how people draw conclusions from available evidence. So
You're no. You're confused. There's a
he
disproportionate like balance of like giving a fuck here, right? You're over here
Yeah, wait,
presumably streaming. I love in
Pogan,
a second. Just
Pogan. But this
relax.
is hold on, Pogan.
We're gonna be here all night, Haas. You want to start
Why
off like
even
this,
refer
man?
to? Okay, Pogan. But this is about my character, and my
Okay, go ahead,
character is
please.
also tied, right? Pogan. Let me explain this to you logically. You're like a logic lord, right? So The reason
Not
why
really.
the reason why you are willing to attack my character is because of my political views, correct? So I then get to draw conclusions about your analytical skills when it comes to politics and theory when you fuck shit up like this. You understand? The only reason you're interacting with me in this way on Twitter or interacting with my image and credibility and character, which you claim to not give a fuck about, is because you
Mhm.
disagree with me when it comes to the meat and potatoes substance, when it comes to theory, politics, and history and et cetera, right?
That's
So
correct. I
the
disagree with
way,
you
yes,
politically.
so the
Yeah.
way in which you actually judge my character, I get to actually hold that to the standard of your politics and
I
theory and history,
actually
right?
here's a surprising statement, right? You'll be shocked at this one. I actually think you're unfairly maligned with respect to your character. So let me explain. I do disagree with you politically, and I think the shit you advocate for politically is like really bad. It shouldn't be advocated for. Yada yada yada. However, um, I generally take this like Twitter stuff, like the whole bitch tits Bonnell and the responses from him, and this like now car thing, whatever. Like the way you interact with people. Um, unless you want to give me a reason to think otherwise. I kind of assumed you were always playing a character. Now, that's not to
Okay.
say that you don't have legitimate political views. I'm sure you're like a Marxist and you genuinely advocate for like, some flavor of socialism that you cooked up or read about, whatever. But I do think you play this up for like, views and subscribers. I
Okay.
think that's pretty transparent.
Okay. So when it comes to issues pertaining to my character and you're wrong about them, you're willing to say you were wrong.
What was I wrong about?
You were wrong about the fact that there's anything significant that you were implying about the cars being there. You're wrong about the fact
That's not true.
that
I stated
what
what was significant about the
what
picture.
that he well yeah what you stated was significant about them doesn't hold up.
It doesn't hold up that the guy took a picture of the same exact location at roughly the
No,
same
not
time.
when you actually analyze the available evidence pertaining to the situation. He could not physically have possibly taken those photos. He
But
admitted
wait,
in the
when I asked you if he got it off like Google Images or something similar, you said no. So
right.
where do you get them? What do you
Well,
think?
again,
What's
you
your
lacked the available
hypothesis?
breadth of evidence, which would have pointed in the direction that there's
Wait, but I'm
someone.
not Haz. I'm not you, right? So my position at best would be like, oh
Right,
well, it
right,
seems like there's reason to believe
right,
this.
but this is
No,
what.
no, no.
Yeah,
Hold on,
but
hold
this
on.
is
Oh, wait.
why.
Just 2 seconds. Wait, we're gonna be here all night. Trust me. You'll have plenty of chances to
Go
think.
ahead,
The
spit
point.
it out.
The point is like, just going off that alone, you're actually wrong in saying that it's not evidence. It is evidence for the
No, it's
claim.
not.
Yes, it is.
It doesn't reflect the available breadth of evidence, which is what I said. The available
Okay,
breadth
do
of
you have reason
evidence
to think it's not evidence?
The available breadth of evidence includes DMs in which he talked to someone who lives in the area who expressed the intention of coming here, but it doesn't end there. The person in question who was supposed to show up, the guy who wanted to confront me, he
Yeah.
even admitted in those DMs that he had no intention of leaving Chicago whatsoever and he just wanted to make me drive there. So, those are two pieces of like damning evidence that are available that are part of the available
So you
breadth of
do think he got
evidence.
it off Google Images?
No, Hogan, you are genuinely a stupid person. Did you just hear what I said?
Sorry you feel that way, man.
There is someone who lives in the area who took those photos and sent them to him.
But doesn't that just confirm that the whole point all along was to troll you then? If you're gonna go with this like conspiracy theory that Destiny reached out to somebody who he knew was in
Okay,
the area
sure.
to get
This
the
was all
picture
to troll
and
me. Okay, then let's ask this question. Why did Destiny then say that this whole thing was faked to make me look good? Practically admitting that it does make me look good.
I don't think I saw that one. Can you show me that tweet?
It's right here.
Sure. Where are you posting it?
It's on stream right now.
Oh, I'm not watching your stream. I'm like in pajamas right now,
Okay,
my man.
well, it's right. I don't care what you're wearing, Pogan.
Well, I don't. Hey,
You called the
don't
wrong hot. You
let's
called
not.
the wrong
Whoa,
hotline.
let's not. Just don't jump to conclusions. I think you might care. What if I
No,
have
I.
like a little infrared red, blue, purple globe shirt? What about that?
Hey, Pogan, I think you got the wrong hotline that you're calling right now because you're about to be in a debate.
I thought you were a Chad Alpha male.
Pogan, let's not pivot away from the substance of what's under contention right now.
Okay, go ahead, please proceed.
You were
Yeah, go ahead.
wrong about the way in which you responded to claims about my character.
I don't agree with you.
Well, how can you not agree with me when you just said that this thing Destiny posted proves that the guy had to have been here?
I think that's still a possibility.
But how is
Of,
that a possibility when he
mhm.
admitted in his DMs with someone else that he had no intention of coming whatsoever?
I can only conclude it's a CIA State Department fraudulent
So you lost.
conspiracy.
Excellent. Now, Pogan, the reason
You think? Why do you think other people?
Pogan,
I don't
the reason,
understand.
yeah, the
Like, you
reason
think
I
other
undergo
people
these
have lost here?
exercises with you is because I want to
Okay,
give the
all right,
chat a
okay,
warm
all
up
right. Yeah.
about your ability to debate overall when it comes to more serious topics.
That's true. I have
Yeah.
black mold brain
So we
damage.
can
You got me.
express that if I actually corner you when it comes to a serious topic, you're going to respond in a similar way, right?
I don't know,
Well,
Haas.
that is what I'm about to demonstrate. Now, there's one more thing I want to get to really quickly before
Right.
we talk about
Okay.
the substance of.
Can I make one quick comment if you
No.
don't mind?
So here's what I'm going to ask you,
What?
Hogan. I distinctly recall that while I was suspended from Twitch for 30 days, you weren't a Twitch streamer, you were a YouTuber, right? You made YouTube
Mhm.
videos. That's not an excuse. I actually challenged you to a debate multiple times. And how did you respond to those challenges?
Are you referring to the combo we had in DMs?
Yeah. What changed?
I didn't get a clear position from you. That's my recollection.
Well, nothing changed. So why are you coming here now?
People asked me to be here, and I'm bored.
Ah, so you weren't bored back then.
I mean, I would hope that at least something to get from this would be entertainment value. That's secured.
Ah, so
Um,
Pogan. It doesn't have anything to do with the fact that back then I was a 200 Andy and now I'm a 1K Andy. Is that anything to do with it?
I don't even know what Andy means.
It means that's my average viewers.
Congratulations. How's that been going for you?
Pogan, it kind of sounds like my slogan, Pogan is a pussy, Pogan is a bitch, has been even further confirmed. You came crawling on my fucking feet while I'm sitting on a throne of gold when I invited you while I was fucking sitting on a throne in a tent. Now you're fucking here groveling before me. You want to debate me now and nothing changed? What
I'm
changed,
just
Pogan?
actually technically your fans just said come
My fans
VC.
have always pestered you to debate me, and
No,
you've
no, no,
always
no, no, no,
blocked
no,
them.
no. Wait, well, listen to the statement. They said come VC. I'm here to VC.
They've always said that.
Okay, all
So
right.
you are
I
not here to
believe you.
debate. You're not here to debate.
Okay, well, give me a proposition if you'd like to debate, Huz.
What do you want to debate about?
It's up to you. Go ahead. I mean, my videos are public, so are yours. Pick a position. Go for it.
Okay. I'll give you a proposition, but I will not afford you the ability to make assumptions about this proposition. Ready?
Can you explain what that means? I'm not really.
It
What do
means
you mean
this.
assumption?
It means when I make this proposition, you can't make assumptions about what it means. If you can ask clarifying questions about its implications, but you can't draw the conclusion that it's loaded with all these other conclusions. Ready? So let's
Sure.
begin.
Yeah, go for it.
You are wrong about the details surrounding Russia's invasion of Ukraine.
Okay. And what am I
Well,
wrong about?
actually, you made a video saying that I lied about the situation. What did I lie about?
The representation of Ukraine as staunchly neo-Nazi sympathetic and somehow beholden to like ultra Ukrainian nationalism in the way that you were describing, in addition to forwarding the idea that there's some reason de facto to believe that Ukraine is in possession of bioweapons facilities merely based on the statements made by Russian scientists.
Beautiful.
That's
So it's actually two pronged. So the first prong refers to the overrepresentation of neo Nazis in the Ukrainian government and in the Ukrainian state, as well as the overwhelming prevalence of Ukrainian ultranationalism in defining the state of Ukraine.
right. Sorry.
And the second thing is about the, as Victoria Nuland called them, research facilities within Ukraine.
Can I
So,
ask a real quick? Can I ask a clarifying question?
sure.
Um, when you say like Ukraine is neo-Nazi, blah 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 blah, um, I take it you're referring to something further than Azov. Um,
Yes.
what's your take on? And you don't like this is. We'll get into the meat and potatoes here, as you like to say, in a second. What's your take on things like Wagner Group and Russian government neo-Nazi
Wagner Group is not
engagements like that?
tied to the Russian government in any official capacity. It's not given any official sanction whatsoever.
Wait, that's I. Well, of course I agree, but the point is that it's not tied to the government officially, right? because it provides plausible deniability for Wagner Group operations on the behalf of the Kremlin.
All right. Do you have any evidence of these operations being on behalf of the Kremlin?
Well, when you say on behalf, do you mean the operations are conducted in tandem with Russian military forces to achieve Russian strategic objectives?
I'm asking you for evidence that the Russian government is ordering the Wagner Group to do things to fulfill its own aims.
Seems like that would be consistent with plausible deniability,
Oh,
right?
so you have no proof.
Well, I mean, you don't have any proof about the neo-Nazi shit
Wagner is
anyway.
a private military company. What is Azov?
It's a component of the Ukrainian National Guard.
Right.
Hmm.
And
And your claim is that because Azov is a
it's
component of
not
the
just
Ukraine,
because of Azov.
well, I grasp that, right? But I'm saying like the
So let me just
relevance of
be, hold
pointing,
on, let me
hey,
just be,
just chill out, man. The relevance of pointing out that Azov is a component of the Ukrainian National Guard, presumably, right? Correct me if I'm wrong here, is to point out that because it's directly reporting to the Ukrainian government, at least in some capacity, that's reason to make what conclusion? That Ukraine's government is neo-Nazi sympathetic overall? That they're at least
um,
tolerant of neo-Nazis?
that's the minimal conclusion if we discount the host of other facts,
Do you for
such as the
sorry, go ahead.
fact
Yeah, yeah.
that the Azov battalion is extremely overrepresented when it comes to the military operations that are undergone in eastern Ukraine. When it comes to the fact that
Mhm,
Ukrainian officials claim that Azov was the quote the best of Ukraine's fighters,
mhm.
when you take into account finally the fact that the Azov battalion is not even the only ultranationalist neo-Nazi battalion within Ukraine. You also have the Adar battalion. You have a picture of the Ukrainian armed forces that overwhelmingly shows neo-Nazi sympathetic elements being extremely overrepresented.
Uh-huh. Right. Okay. So, do you further believe that that's reason to invade the country of Ukraine?
That is not. Well, you just shifted the goalposts. We're talking about whether neo-Nazis have overwhelming overrepresentation in the Ukrainian state.
How did I shift the goalposts without making a claim?
Because
I asked a question.
the question of the justification for Russia's invasion would have to lead to more prongs, right? That's
I just asked two questions. The
yeah.
first was, do you think what's the relevance of Azov with respect to the Ukrainian government? That was question one. Question two was, what do you think is the relevance of that in terms of justifying Russian military operations
There's
there?
an overall context that needs to be clarified before we can
Okay.
explore that question.
And let me open like a notepad document here. One second. Just to clarify, would you be willing to state, like right now, for my benefit, you believe the Russian invasion is justified, correct?
Yes,
But okay, cool. And a component of that justification is their objective to denazify the country. Is that right?
yes.
Okay. And you think Azov, in addition to some other things you'll mention, I'm sure in a second, is a reason to think that the I doubt you would say like the majority of the Ukrainian population is Nazi sympathetic, right?
No.
Okay, cool. So it's just the government then.
I would call it the deep state.
What does that mean?
So there's two levels of every modern government in the world, except with actually a few exceptions, China and Russia actually being among them, where you have the official state with like its official parties and parliament and representation, and then you have like the military and the intelligence operatives and oligarchs and also thug militias that are receiving orders from these elements. Basically, like people who pull the strings in a non-official capacity.
Okay. So you generally think denazification is one of a set of reasons that another country can invade another country. Yeah.
No, not in a vacuum, not as some kind of abstract precept.
So you're building a cumulative case.
Denazification is part of the wider context of the geographic and historical realities of Ukraine and Russia.
But it's just the government, I thought. Because you remember when I said, is the population generally Nazi sympathetic? You said you weren't willing to make a
What's
claim
the
like that.
relevance of the population not being overwhelmingly Nazi sympathetic?
The fact that a whole fucking ton of them are getting killed right now by Russian military forces.
How many exactly?
I'm sure it's in the thousands. You want an exact number? You're not like
I
doubting
actually think
civilians.
there's
Are
a
you doubting civilians have died? I don't
no, I'm
understand.
not. Hold on, I'm not denying there's been collateral damage.
Right. So what does the number matter?
The
The
number
point is,
matters. The
can I
number
explain?
matters
Just let me explain
because
my. All right,
yeah,
fine. Go ahead. Go ahead.
the
Just
number
go ahead.
matters because if Russia's waging like a systematic effort to target civilians and engage in a genocide or something like that, then yes, your argument would
No, no, no. I didn't make
would
the claim
stand.
they were genociding Ukrainians. I made the claim that if it's the case that you think at least one component of the justification for the invasion is denazification, right? Then you'd have to further say something like, well, that's going to either alone or as part of a cumulative case justify the civilian casualties inflicted as a consequence of this invasion, right? I don't know the exact number. I'm pretty sure it's in the thousands. If you fucking really want it, I'll find it. Although those are going to be Western sources, so you'll probably just, I don't know, scream about it. The point
So
is,
your point is not relevant. The Ukrainian population does not have to be neo-Nazi sympathetic in order for collateral damage of civilians.
well, I
By the
don't even
way,
accept that the government is neo-Nazi sympathetic, but the point I'm making is
if
broader
the
than that.
objective is to denazify Ukraine,
Can I
and
finish?
part of that objective means demilitarizing Ukraine and defeating the Azov battalion and these elements of the
Wait,
Ukrainian armed
slow down,
forces,
slow down. We're getting ahead of ourselves. Now it's demilitarizing Ukraine? We were talking about denazification.
well, they're hand in hand because the Nazis in question are overwhelmingly represented within the military.
Okay,
It
wait.
is the view of the Russian government, as a matter of fact, that the military is in control of Ukraine and not even the President Zelensky.
I don't doubt that. I don't doubt that there are elements of the Ukrainian armed forces that are neo-Nazi, right? Even beyond Azov. Pretty much every standing military in the world, especially Western ones.
Yeah, but Ukraine has a disproportionate and overrepresentation of neo Nazis relative to almost any military anywhere else in the world.
Are you saying that the majority of the Ukrainian military is Nazi sympathetic?
The majority, I mean, conscripts or the military establishment.
I'm just trying to get. This is the same problem we had in DMs like a year ago, right? I'm trying to get clarity on what exactly it is you're claiming, and it seems like you're very careful not to say just exactly what you mean. What I'm hearing is this. You can correct me if I'm mistaken here, right? You think that the Ukrainian armed forces are somehow kind of like innately or at this point
They're
like
Nazified.
so
I
into
would call them Nazified.
okay as like a as like an institution collectively.
Yeah, the people, the upper echelons that run that institution, yes, they're Nazified.
Is the source for that claim primarily Russian reporting?
It has to do with the overrepresentation of neo Nazis in the Ukrainian
That's
armed
not the question
forces
I asked you.
military operations.
That's not the question I asked you. The question I asked you
I
is
answered your question and some. No, it's not simply because of Russian sources. I don't know what the source has
what
to
are the
do
other
with.
sources?
I don't think it's contested that 10 to 15,000 of the total of the Ukrainian National Guard are part of battalions that are ultra nationalist neo Nazis.
But your claim is that the Ukrainian armed forces simpliciter are Nazified.
Yeah.
How many units total are in the Ukrainian armed forces? Do you know?
I know that there's 50,000 in the National Guard.
So even by presumably the sources that you're referring to, which I'll take your word, they're not just Russia, but at least some of it's going to be Russia, right? Even by that standard, less than what? Like, let's do some quick math, right? It's been a while since I've done
Yeah, but
math.
before you do the math, just to be clear, it's not relevant because I never claimed that the majority of
So
conscripts.
30%, roughly, right?
Okay,
30%.
so let me just explain to you basic logic. The majority of conscripts within the Ukrainian armed forces are
And
not
that's
neo.
if that's that.
Hold
Just to
on, don't
clarify.
interrupt me. The majority of
All right,
conscripts
chill out, chill
are
out.
not neo Nazis. What reflects an armed forces in its actual character has to do with the intentions that are directed at the level of leadership that define it as an institution. Conscripts are just ordinary people, okay? And
We're getting off track here.
even no, we're
This
not
this
getting off. Hold on, we're not getting off
no, because
track
now we're
because it
talking.
is not it is not
Relax,
true
calm
that there
down.
has to be a majority of conscripts that are neo-Nazis in order for the armed forces to be claimed to be something that's Nazified.
I didn't say it was dependent on the majority of the
So
standing
why are you
military
pointing
being
out that there's
Nazis. I'll
only
explain.
and this
Yeah,
is
yeah,
only
yeah.
this is a really weighting only because 30% is still a fuck ton.
Well, that's again, yeah, I agree, but that's assuming the sources that you haven't provided to me are legitimate. But we'll just grant that they are because I like to be charitable in arguments
Okay,
like this. Let's
according
just
to a
grant it.
BBC documentary,
Okay, I'll let you go ahead. We're going
C-14
over time
runs
pretty
the
fast.
Ministry of Defense.
Are you done?
Well, say what you want to say.
Yeah. So let's assume that the sources you're using for this 30% UKAF claim are legitimate. And I'd like to just say on like one topic here instead of jumping all over the place. You are saying that the government of Ukraine, Zelensky as their president, is beholden to this military, and therefore the Russian campaign of denazification is justified. Now, that's going to depend on a number of things being substantiated. The first thing it's going to depend on substantiation for is that the number's that high. I haven't heard a source for that yet. The second
Number
thing
of
it's going to
what?
depend just real quick. The second thing it's going to depend on is a reason to think the government, in the way that you're describing, is actually beholden to these ultranationalist elements in the Ukrainian military, right? Which itself is a claim that requires evidence. So if you can show me both of those things, if you can show me the numbers are accurate, the evidence like checks out, there's no problems with methodology, there's no like very obvious like implicit bias in the reporting, and then you can also show that there's reason to think Zelensky's administration is really just subservient to like what'd you call it, the Ukrainian generals, right, the highest echelons of the military. That'd be cool. So why don't we just
What
get into the sources
exactly
for
are
that?
you asking for?
I just stated clearly what I was asking for.
There was nothing clear about what you asked whatsoever. Give me something precise you want.
What do you? I That's like insane to say. I asked for evidence for both of
Evidence
the
of
claims that you
what?
made. I just told you the first thing I want
That the
evidence for
Ukrainian
is that
government is Nazified. Or I should say
that's a deliberately unnuanced take
the
on what I
Ukrainian
just said.
state is Nazified. Is that a question you're looking for?
I Sorry. I just stated the two things that I'm looking for evidence for.
You want evidence that the 30% claim holds?
Yeah, I want evidence that the number of people who you described as Nazi sympathetic, like that's an accurate
That's
number
not the
for the
number
Ukrainian.
of Nazi sympathetic people, it's the number of battalions that are in their official, as organizations, are ultranationalists and or neo-Nazis.
Okay. Yeah, so do you have a source for that one? And then we'll tackle the second one afterwards.
Sure, someone get the source and put it in fact checking.
Wait, you don't have the source on hand?
I don't have it on hand.
Okay.
Someone go ahead and put it in fact checking. Put the combined battalions, which comprise 10 to 15,000.
This based underscore superstructure gentleman posted something from the gray zone. Is that the one that you remember?
I don't think it's here.
Okay. All right. All right. Well, I mean, like, hopefully you can understand the point that I'm making because I like to pride myself as a relatively anti-Nazi person, and when this war first happened and everybody
By
was
the
like,
way,
"Hey, look,
it being the gray zone is not going to be relevant, considering the fact that you have to question where these primary sources are coming from. It doesn't matter, like, yes, the gray zone
I
has
didn't
an
do,"
agenda to present
yeah,
primary sources in this way, but the primary source would still stand.
I don't actually want you to be angry. Like, all I did was chuckle. I didn't say it was like bullshit or anything on its face. I just did a little
Okay.
laugh. You don't have to.
Someone go ahead and
Not
post
everything's like the end of the world. Just saying.
post the combined numbers of all those battalions. All you really have to do is tally them up. Like, all you literally have to do is take all, like, you have to do two things. I have to prove to you these battalions are neo-Nazis or nationalists, and then I have to prove to you that the numbers of the people who constitute those battalions are accurate.
Uh, Sorry, I kind of zoned out at the second part, but the first part, yeah, correct, yeah.
Okay, how would I be able to do that for you?
I mean, well, for the first thing with the numbers, you specifically cited that you had evidence. You further said it was
No,
actually
I'm talking about proving that they are neo-Nazis in the first place. You want the
what
numbers first?
you made the claim they were neo Nazis,
Yeah.
right? So that's your burden, right? You would have to
Okay,
prove they're neo
Okay,
Nazis.
so is the Azov battalion neo-Nazi?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, is the Idar battalion neo-Nazi?
I don't know what that is. Show me something about it.
Okay, where do you want me to
I'm
show it to
open.
you?
You can DM me. I don't think you have me blocked or anything.
I
I'm open.
only
Like,
I only can only DM friends.
do you want to be my friend, Hawes?
Absolutely not.
Okay. All right, fine. Just put it in like fact checking or whatever. I don't care.
All right, so this is the IDAR battalion. You can just look at the Wikipedia, and it's in fact checking. The IDAR battalion is right here in
Uh huh.
Wikipedia.
Sure. And just to clarify, we're working our way up very gradually to 30%, right? That's the number that you cited. Is that correct?
That's what you said. I said 10 to 15,000 of Ukraine's National Guard.
Out of 50,000 standing military units,
In the
which would be
National Guard.
right, which would be 30%, right? And compared to the Ukrainian armed forces at large, depending on whether or not you want to combine standing and reserved personnel, that's up to you. But we'll just go with standing to be charitable.
Ukraine has 200,000 active military personnel.
200,000 active. Okay, so
Yeah.
that would be 0.075% of the UK. Oh, sorry, I didn't multiply by 100. Don't believe me on that one. 7.5% of the military.
No, this is
Right.
also something Destiny did. Why do you think that the conscripts are what's going to define what defines an institution's ideological orientation?
I didn't say it did. I'm saying there's
It is
reason
not
to
even
express.
material or relevant to an institution's ideological orientation of the number of conscripts. It's
You know,
literally not even.
you kind of just fucked yourself, because if it's not relevant to the like ideology of the institution, you wouldn't be fighting it. You are using it as evidence.
But you're the one who asked for the conscripts in the first place. I never attributed to them significance.
That's
The 30
irrelevant.
the
If you didn't think,
30% thing,
yeah,
Pogan,
go ahead.
you
Go ahead.
wanted
Go
that.
ahead.
It doesn't even, I clarified to you even before we talked about it that it was like it doesn't even matter because that's not what defines an institution. Like that was very early on in our argument about it. You want proof of that it's the 30% or whatever. So whoever listed them, list all the battalions again, and we'll just tally up their total members.
Yeah, so the problem is, if you thought it doesn't really matter if I asked or not, because you saying in response to that question, because I remember I asked you
No,
originally,
it
like, do you,
wasn't in response to that question.
hold on, you can correct me in a second. When I asked you, like, hey, Haas, good bud, if you think they're like neo-Nazis and denazification is one of the many acceptable justifications for Russian military operations, right? What do what? You're going to point to Azov, right? I said kind of mockingly, and you said, oh, well, there's more battalions than just Azov. There's
Right.
15,000 fucking total standing neo-Nazi pieces of shit. And I said, okay, cool. So let's get the evidence for that, right? That's how the conversation went down. And I'm just
Okay.
pointing out to you now, I'm almost
Wait,
done.
hold
I
on.
promise. Okay,
But
all
but
right,
hold
yeah,
on.
yeah,
Then you
all right, yeah.
said after I said that, you said that that's not a majority. And then I said it doesn't matter if it's not a majority if it's only 10 to 15,000. Because and then I made the argument in question.
Okay, so
So
are
now
you
you're
now
shifting the goalposts and you're saying, "Okay, I want the evidence actually of the amount." Right?
are you conceding that the number? Well, actually, we can take a step back on that one. Are you now
No.
saying that the presence of neo-Nazis in the Ukrainian military is not germane to whether or not the Ukrainian military is neo-Nazi at its core, like has a fundamental neo-Nazi ideology or whatever? That's what I'm
Hey,
hearing.
Pogan, just a question.
What's
Are
up?
you a fucking idiot?
On Tuesdays, maybe? Is today Tuesday?
So, look at what you just said. The presence of neo-Nazis. What constitutes that presence? Are we talking about in the leadership? Are we talking at an institutional level? Or are we talking about conscripts? Because I'm not saying that the
I thought your
evidence,
claim was that the government was neo-Nazi.
the state, yes.
Yeah. So why even mention the conscripts at all? Why give me a number?
I don't know. I don't know why we're talking
You're just
about.
confused? You just randomly threw a number
You
at me
are
for
the
no
one who
particular
wanted to
reason.
talk about the conscripts. I did mention the several other battalions whose combined total is 30% in number of conscripts of the Ukrainian armed forces.
Are the conscripts evidence for the government being neo-Nazi or
No,
not?
but the battalions are. That's what I'm trying to tell you. It's not about the conscripts,
And
it's
the
about the
battalion,
battalions.
right? Okay, and the number of total.
The
You
number of conscripts
sure?
that are under the battalions relative to the Ukrainian armed forces is what's significant, not the
How
conscripts themselves.
how many? Okay, so you're saying the battalions are the evidence for the government being no-Nazi. So
Yeah.
how many soldiers total are in these specifically neo-Nazi battalions, like altogether?
What
15,000? Is
I
that the
heard is
15,000
10 to
figure?
15,000.
So the exact thing we just went over for the last 30 minutes is relevant then, despite what you're saying, right? Because that's
The
the number I
math
used.
is, hold on. The Dnipro, okay, finally we got it. Dnipro Battalion, Idar, Azov, Dnipro 1, Dnipro 2, and Donbass Volunteer Militias. A battalion that's okay. So the minimum is 7,000. And the military analysts claim that Azov has gone to a brigade of 3,000. So there's at least
Mm-hmm.
10,000 we actually no, it's at least 10,000 we know of. I'm gonna tell them
Out of
to
a
post
standing, out of a
source. Check and
standing
fact checking.
Sure, cool. Out of a standing active duty military of like
We're talking
200K,
about the
right?
Ukrainian National Guard right now,
Okay. How many
which has
people are in
been
the?
conducting the majority of the operations, if not all the operations within
But we
Eastern
just wait,
Ukraine.
wait, just 2 seconds. We just went over both the military itself, right, the 200K figure, as well as what I thought you gave as the total National Guard standing personnel, which was 50K. Is that correct?
What's your point?
The numbers that I've been providing you for the last 20 minutes are still completely relevant.
That it's only 7.5%?
The 7.5 is the Ukrainian armed forces collectively. It was 30 if you want to just look at the National
Yeah,
Guard,
so
but again, that's
what is
just 2
significant
seconds.
about
Hello?
what is significant about
Hello?
nearly yeah, what?
Sorry, I just had to knock on your door. Yeah, it's 30% just with the National Guard. That was the point.
Okay, what is your point? What's the point of that, I guess? What is your point? That's still
Well,
a lot.
you started throwing these numbers at me, presumably as a way to further the claim that, well, Ukraine, quote unquote, was a neo-Nazi country, which by which you really meant the government is neo-Nazi,
Hold on, wait.
has a neo-Nazi
When did I
ideology.
say Ukraine is a neo-Nazi country?
I mean, that
I
was the
said the
inference I drew.
Ukrainian state, and more specifically the deep state, is Nazified.
Right. And you gave those battalions as evidence by your own admission, right?
As one of the pieces of evidence for that, sure.
Okay, so let's just get down to the nitty gritty. One of the pieces of evidence you have for the Ukrainian government being Nazi is the fact that 30% of the National Guard, aka 7.5% of the total Ukrainian Armed Forces standing personnel, is Nazi sympathetic or holds Nazi ideology, according to sources that I have not been provided, including presumably the Russian government's own
So
reporting.
what are we arguing about? The sources or granting that this is just true? Because if I provide you the sources, I'm sure you have an argument lined up, right? Okay, so this
Well, I mean, I could
a
sure. So
source
I'll
for the
point.
list of battalions funded by Kolominsky, who's one of the Ukrainian oligarchs.
Wait, but this is the same gray zone article you said
No,
earlier
it's
wasn't
not.
your
It's
evidence.
literally Wikipedia.
Oh, you're not. So you're not talking about the thing that based superstructure guy dude posted and
It's
tagged you in.
literally something Morlock just listed on Wikipedia.
Chris Morlock,
And
Ihor
the gray zone,
Kolomoisky,
if you want to call
Kolomoisky.
into question the primary sources utilized by that gray zone article, you're more than welcome to.
I don't know why you're jumping on me for things that aren't coming out of my mouth. I didn't say anything about like gray zone's primary sources. What I said is, look, I'll just restate the problem. Okay,
Okay,
you are saying
look
that
at both
the
of them.
I will in a second. You are saying that the Ukrainian government is a Nazi government. One of the pieces of evidence for this claim is the presence of neo-Nazi
Okay, do you want to
battalions.
grant me the fact and then make your argument then?
I mean, I would have to look at. I know Azov is neo-Nazi. I'd have to look at the other battalions, but I
Okay,
can
so
grant. I can
are you
grant
going
them.
to
I can
grant me
just
the fact, or are
yes,
we still going
yes,
to... Okay, grant me
pause.
the fact and
Yes,
then make your
I
argument.
can. I can grant it for the sake of argument, but even if I grant it, right, just inductively, right, because of how like probabilistic evidence works, how induction works, saying that it's going to be strong evidence that the government is Nazi based on the presence of neo-Nazis in 30% of the Guard and 7.5% of the Ukrainian armed forces together, on its face is just weak evidence, even if you grant that the evidence is
Okay, that's what
methodologically
I wanted to
sound.
get to. So the reason that's not true is because that assumes that there's an equal proportion of relevance in the Ukrainian armed forces in terms of defining the power of the institution and the exercise of power thereof. But as it happens,
Wait, can you say that again? That was confusing. Just one more
that
time, please.
assumes there is an equal that assumes that the like every single there's an equal level of significance as far as like the number of battalions and conscripts are concerned in terms of how heavily they weigh in defining the institution of the Ukrainian armed
I don't know
forces.
why. I don't know why we're talking. You said the conscripts aren't what's important. What's important are the
Okay,
battalions.
look, just focus on that 7.5%, right?
Yep.
That assumes, let's just do it in terms of percentages then, right? So to make it clear. I know you're a stupid person, so we're just going to make this clear.
You don't need to
So
be.
that
Come on, we're
assumes
nice.
that
We're good
assumes
buds, dude.
okay, so that is there's 7.5% and then there's 92.5%, right? Well,
Yeah, assuming your numbers are right. Yeah.
in order for the 7.5% to not be strong evidence, every percentage of the total has to have equal representation and significance in terms of defining the
No, 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 no,
institution
no,
of
no,
the
no, no,
Ukrainian
no, no,
armed
no, no,
forces.
no, no,
For
no. Listen,
example,
you're confused.
if
Can I
that
stop you? Because this is a complete tangent, right? No offense. Look, the point is 7.5% of the Ukrainian armed forces being Nazi sympathetic,
Mhm.
right? You're trying to.
Why
What we're
isn't
missing
that
is
good
you're.
evidence?
I'm explaining. What you're missing is the connective tissue here. You need to connect that to the idea that the Ukrainian government, actually more specifically the Ukrainian deep state, still I don't even really
I've
know
been
how to say
trying
it.
to do that, but you cut me off.
Okay, fair enough. So what's the connective tissue there?
The connective
What?
tissue is the fact that that 7.5% has overrepresentation in defining the institution of the Ukrainian armed forces and in terms of as measured by its activities.
So now the claim is that the 7.5% is in fact, I guess, dictating the ideology for the remaining 92.5% implicitly,
More,
kind
if
of.
we measure it based on the activity of the armed forces, yes. They are the vanguard. They are, to quote one of the president of Ukraine at the time, Poroshenko, the best of Ukraine's fighters, and he was referencing the Azov. The other battalions have also, behind Azov, been at the vanguard of operations in eastern Ukraine, which has defined the majority of the war that had been going on for 8 years against the so-called separatists in eastern Ukraine.
I think you might actually
The
be committing, I forget which one it is. It's either the composition fallacy or the opposite one. I forget the name for it.
okay, why?
But you're trying to extrapolate without real evidence because I guess we're just talking about like
Go ahead.
implications now. You're trying to extrapolate 7.5% of the Ukrainian armed forces being, I guess, explicitly a neo-Nazi. It's self-requiring evidence that we still need to look at into the remainder of the Ukrainian armed forces, and by extension, the Ukrainian government and the quote-unquote deep state is Nazi sympathetic as a consequence of that.
No,
Now,
Pogan, the problem is that you're just
go
not
ahead.
a smart person. Okay?
I understand you
We
believe
don't
that. Yeah.
know. Let's just have a blank slate, right? Tabula rasa. We don't know, first of all, how significant that 7.5% is. I am not saying they are significant ex nihilo
What do you
from
mean we?
scratch. You and
What do you
I,
mean
right
we?
now, arguing. We don't know, right?
Then why? Then that if you don't know what the importance of that is, it makes it
No,
even
I
weaker
do
evidence.
know, but not within the context of the initial argument. So there's two arguments being
So
made.
this isn't evidence for your argument then.
Pogan, 7.5%. Nothing was clarified, I should say. That's what I mean to say. Nothing was said or clarified. That's what I mean we don't know. We, the audience, and you. Nothing was clarified as to the question of how significant they are. Now, if every percentage of that 100% total is equally proportionate, then you would be right. 7.5% is not strong
What do
evidence.
you mean by proportionate? It seems like when you're saying proportionate, what you're meaning is just the influence they have on the collective ideology and belief
The
systems of the
proportion,
entire
the disproportionate influence they
Okay, well
have.
that's by its very nature, unless you have evidence, which I would love to see.
Okay, I
If
have
we're talking,
evidence like that the
no, no,
Azov
no, 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 no,
battalion.
no, no, no. Listen to the thing before you assume what I'm going to say. You're saying that 7.5% has a disproportionate effect on the overall ideology,
But
beliefs,
why?
convictions,
Why am I
etc.
saying that? But why am
Well,
I saying that?
you appeal to the. I understand you appeal to the quote you referenced earlier,
No,
but
I'm
I'm saying
not.
for the.
I'm appealing to evidence that has not been even brought up yet because you
Can you
keep
stop
fucking
yelling?
interrupting me. I'm referring to the
You
fact
don't need to get
that the
frustrated.
Azov battalion almost single-handedly recaptured cities like Mariupol throughout the duration of the Civil War. You don't know how significant these battalions are, and that's literally what I'm trying to tell you.
I don't, or
And
we don't.
you just don't know how significant they are. You're assuming they're just as significant as every other sector of the Ukrainian armed forces, but they're not. The
I
facts
didn't make
show
that
that they're
assumption.
not.
No, I didn't make that assumption. I just gave you the numbers.
Okay, so why are you saying 7.5% is not strong evidence when you don't know whether it would be strong evidence or not? It
Well,
would be
because even
strong
by going
evidence.
what you're, even
It
by
is
going,
strong
sure.
evidence
Yeah, but
if that 7.5% was at the vanguard of their operations, then it would be good evidence.
I don't know what you mean by vanguard. You're
They
trying to
are
make some
they
point.
were
You're
literally
trying to
at
make
the
some claim that
vanguard
they're
of
like.
operations in eastern Ukraine for 8 years.
Well, that's just repeating your statement. What I'm saying is you're trying to make like some implicit claim here that they have like a disproportionate influence on the ideology and belief system of the rest of the military. And I'm just
They do.
saying, not only has no reason been provided for that other than the quote that you
Sure.
referenced, I guess, even like it still doesn't show me that there's any
All
further.
I would have to demonstrate to
Do you
you.
mind if I finish my statement, please?
Go ahead, finish it.
It doesn't actually demonstrate that there's any further reason to believe that the initial claim, which is that the Ukrainian deep state government is Nazi sympathetic, has been raised in probability to be true, right? You're trying to make an inductive case, and I just don't see the induction really panning out. It's not cogent.
I did, Pogan, because I literally did. What do you mean? I did.
I didn't hear it.
Yeah. It's like only 9% of German Nazis were committed actively involved in the Holocaust. So does that mean Nazism? But like, does that mean like it's not strong evidence?
Well, see, the
relationship between Nazism and the Holocaust.
The reason that's disanalogous is because pretty much every member of the German armed forces, the Wehrmacht, the Waffen-SS, etc., right, the Schutzstaffel themselves, pretty much every element of them, as a mere condition of being sworn into the Nazi Party and then whatever military detachment they were sworn into, had to directly swear loyalty to Adolf Hitler, a guy who has explicitly said multiple times, beginning in like the late 20s, that he fucking hates Jewish people, right? That's a complete disanalogy.
But that just because he hated Jewish people does not actually mean that they were directly complicit in the Holocaust.
No, you're not understanding the point. The point is merely by being like a card-carrying Nazi party member, right? You're swearing your loyalty to the guy making these statements publicly and being very, very fucking open and transparent about his ideology.
You don't even understand the analogy. I'm not even stating it as an analogy. You don't understand the analogy.
It's cool.
Because I'm not.
Calm down. It's okay. We're okay. Shh. The point is, it's completely disanalogous because
I'm going to let you finish what you were saying just to fucking prove to you you're wasting my time. So go ahead and finish your stupid fucking sentence, Pogan.
I'm actually a big fan of the gain thing. That was cool in the
Finish
Destiny,
it. Finish it. Finish it so you can shut your pig mouth. Go ahead.
Yeah, so the point is, unless you have some secret tape recording of Zelensky saying, like, bro, Nazis are dope and shit, my man, there's no reason to think that people, one, by being in the Ukrainian armed forces, subscribe to any sort of ideology like that, simplicator. Two, that because Azov and all these other battalions you're referencing are supposedly, as you claim, disproportionately influential in the ideology, that by extension, a majority or even a significant component of the Ukrainian armed forces subscribe to anything resembling a Nazi ideology. That's what we're missing. We need some cogent.
Alright, you're gonna shut the fuck up now. I mute you because this has gone on too long. Pogan, my analogy was not about. I'm gonna mute him. I gotta mute this dumb fuck. You gonna shut up? You gonna shut your pig mouth? Oink oink. You're gonna shut your pig mouth, Pogan.
You're my favorite streamer.
Pogan, I wasn't trying to say that the situation with the German armed forces relative to Nazi ideology is the same in the case of Ukraine. I was saying only 9...
Analogy, right?
Shut the fuck up! You're getting muted. You're getting fucking muted. There we go. Now the pig can shut the fuck up. Pogan, you have to very, very carefully listen to me. Like, very slowly. I know you're a stupid fuck. Your brain can't handle this. So listen very slowly. Trust me. You're going to feel really stupid after I say it. What I said is that if we assume 9% of German Nazis were actively involved in perpetrating the Holocaust, the analogy is to the 7.5% of the Ukrainian armed forces. But the object is completely different. One is about neo-Nazi ideology. The other one is about active involvement and culpability in the Holocaust. You made the assumption that what I was talking about was Nazi ideology in Germany vis neo-Nazi ideology in Ukraine. It's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the proportion of a total political organization or armed forces can, in terms of percentages, doesn't have to be anywhere near a majority in order for the institution as a whole to be defined by them. Those 9% of Nazis who perpetrated the Holocaust defined almost the entirety of Nazism's legacy as being responsible for the Holocaust, despite that it was only 9%. Okay? Now, analogously, Not just because of them, but analogously, if 7.5% of Ukraine's armed forces are neo Nazis, it is possible, not necessary, because that requires more explanation, but it is definitely possible that 7.5% can more than easily define the institution of the Ukrainian armed forces as having Nazi persuasions or as something that's Nazified. So that is my argument, very simply. Now you can respond to what I actually said instead of wasting my fucking time.
Yeah, that doesn't follow. The reason it doesn't follow is because when you're talking about the 7.5% of Ukrainian armed forces that are like neo-Nazi or whatever, right? Let's grant it for the sake of argument. You're talking about people that, though they may be explicit in their beliefs and their political ideology, the further claim that you're making, the one where you're talking about how they're so influential on the rest of the military, is one that's just sort of being thrown in there without further cause or further explanation. So I'll explain why that's not the same as the Wehrmacht or like Schutzstaffel case. In the case of the Wehrmacht, the Schutzstaffel, the Waffen SS, right? Those people, not only by being card-carrying Nazi Party members, explicitly subscribe to the ideology of
Not
Adolf Hitler.
relevant. The ideology
Well,
is not
it is
relevant.
perfectly relevant.
No, no,
Almost.
it's
I'm
not.
almost done.
The
Not
Holocaust is what's
only not only
relevant.
do they explicitly subscribe to the ideology of Adolf Hitler, right, by being in the party, they actually further were divided up into detachments specifically tasked with carrying out the objectives of the Holocaust,
Okay.
et cetera, et cetera.
So
So,
what you're saying is that it wasn't only 9%.
well, I'm saying that, well, unless you want to disagree, I'm saying that because those people were card-carrying Nazi Party members, if they did not renounce their party membership, if they didn't like actively take a stand against their orders, I think pretty much every German military member is complicit in the Holocaust to a varying
Okay,
degree.
then why didn't you just say that? You're just saying, then Haas, you were wrong about 9%. So let me actually
Well, I
rewind that.
did. You just didn't
Okay, then
understand what I said.
let's rewind it by saving ourselves time and using a hypothetical. What if only 9% of Nazis committed the Holocaust and 91% had no clue it was going on? Would Nazism's legacy still be defined by the Holocaust?
Yeah,
Why? When only 9% were carrying it out.
because every member of the Nazi military swears allegiance to Adolf Hitler, the guy carrying it out.
Okay, sure. So let me explain this to you analogously, okay? In the same way that in this hypothetical, that 9% is responsible
You're
for
not
the
going to say
Holocaust,
Zelensky's like a Nazi at all.
Zelensky doesn't lead the real Ukrainian state that I'm claiming is Nazified.
Can we
That's
get
what.
to that? Well, that's important then, because I'm gonna go off.
Wait, but Pogan,
Let's put it.
initially I
Yeah,
said
yeah,
the
yeah.
Ukrainian deep state. I didn't say the official Ukrainian state and Zelensky. So
Okay.
let's be
Can you
clear
show
that.
me that the Ukrainian military actually runs the government then, please?
Hold on. Before we get there, that was an initial premise of this entire engagement, which you knew about. So if you want to talk about that, we're going to have to finish this one first, okay? Because you seem to gotten us somewhere without contesting it
That's actually not
thus
true.
far.
What I conceded to was that the numbers you threw out regarding the number of
Pogan,
battalions
but
was
my
correct.
claim is that the Ukrainian deep state and including the armed forces was Nazified. Now you're
Yeah.
talking about Zelensky, okay? So you
So it's
got
not true when I said, "Do you think the government is Nazi?" You said yes. That's not true.
because the real government of Ukraine is Nazified, the deep
Right. So
state,
that would mean if I said government and you really meant deep state and I meant like
which I clarified
Zelensky.
very early on, and you did
Well,
not take any time to
Well, that's
contest.
well, we can get into that, but just to clarify, that doesn't mean like I'm prima facie saying that I agree with the premise that there is a deep state and that it's run by the military. Just to
Well,
clarify.
but we got this far without you challenging that premise.
And that's
Okay,
because we spent the
so now
majority of
we're
the
gonna
time
get
talking
here.
about battalions and proportions.
So Pogan, it actually doesn't matter who the real president of Ukraine is because by analogy,
Yes, it does.
these neo-Nazi battalions are a function of the intentions of the Ukrainian state as an institution in the same way that the Holocaust was a function of the intentions of the Nazi Party.
Right,
In
and
my analogy.
Adolf Hitler ran the German government, right?
What does it matter who runs the government of
We've already
Ukraine?
explained the relevance. The
Wait,
relevance
but it
is
doesn't.
if Adolf.
Listen, let's say
I
okay,
thought that was a question.
let's say Kermit the Frog was the head of the Nazi Party. Then it doesn't make a difference as far as their culpability in the Holocaust, does it? It doesn't matter who
Yes, it
runs
does.
anything.
I explained why it did. The reason
Why?
it does, the reason it has relevance,
Yeah.
and a further reason for the disanalogy is again because merely by joining the Nazi Party, right? You are agreeing to follow the orders, and you swear allegiance to Adolf Hitler.
Okay, sure. So merely okay. So the by
Right, you're
analogy,
familiar with that, right? You're familiar with like how Nazis, when they joined the party, they didn't swear loyalty to like the Constitution of Germany or the
it's a
country or the
party. It's
people.
I know what a party is, Pogan.
No, 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 no,
Okay.
no. It's more
Yeah,
than just
it's
a
a
party.
party.
No, no, no,
Why
no,
would a
no.
party
No, no, no,
swear
no, no.
allegiance to the
Careful,
Constitution when
careful,
the party
careful,
is not the
careful.
state? You dumbass. It's a party.
Because the Wehrmacht, right, when they become German soldiers, German infantry, whatever, they don't swear. Like, you know how when you join the military in America, you're like, I swear to protect and uphold the
Because the
Constitution, blah, blah,
Wehrmacht
blah, blah, blah.
belongs to the German state.
You're not
A
listening to me.
state and a party are not the same thing, you dumb fuck.
That you're not listening to me. When you join the U.S. military, you go, I swear loyalty to the Constitution of the U.S. and blah, right? When you became a Wehrmacht soldier, Wehrmacht infantry, you didn't say fucking anything like that. You said, I swear loyalty to goddamn Adolf Hitler. And
Who
that's the
is the
point, because Adolf
chancellor
Hitler
of
is,
Germany?
hold on, almost done. Adolf Hitler's on stage for years prior to this saying the Jews are the problem.
You
They're
swear
bringing
loyalty
down.
to the chancellor of the German state.
Are you saying that German infantry soldiers did not swear loyalty directly to Hitler?
Yes, because he was the
You are
chancellor of
historically incorrect about that.
because he was the chancellor of the German state.
You are historically incorrect
What
about
am I
that.
incorrect about?
They did, in fact, swear loyalty.
I didn't deny that, Pogan. I said it's because he's the chancellor of the German state. Get this shit out of your fucking ears and stop wasting our time, you dumb fucking pig.
So you agree they swore loyalty to Hitler then?
Yes, who was the
Okay, cool.
chancellor of the
Now
German state.
Whatever. But you agree they swore loyalty to
Because he
Hitler?
was the chancellor of the German state, yes. And he was an anti-Semite.
Yeah, and you think like German
And
people
yeah,
would
we know
vote?
he's an anti-Semite. You don't have to say things we all know. But the thing is, Pogan,
I don't
the
know why you get so
relevant
upset here.
point is that in this hypothetical, you just agreed that if only 9% of the members of the Nazi party committed the Holocaust, right, and 91% did not, that doesn't change the
You're still
Nazi
missing the
party's
point.
culpability in the
No, 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 no,
Holocaust.
no. You're still missing the point. The reason why we would think the culpability thing is different there is because in the case of the Wehrmacht, right, you just agreed, yeah, they do swear loyalty to
Shut the
Hitler,
fuck up
right?
about the Wehrmacht. Okay, I have to do like a from scratch thing because you're just confused at this point. Let's do the Cookie Monster genocide.
I don't want to.
We're gonna do the Cookie Monster genocide. So Elmo has an army of 5,000 people, or he has a party of 5,000 people, and there's a whole specimen of Cookie Monsters, right? So Elmo has only 2% of Elmo's army or his party is directly culpable, receiving orders from Elmo, right? Directly culpable in the genocide of Cookie Monsters, okay? That still means Elmo, as in his party as an institution, is responsible for the Cookie Monster genocide, even if only 2% of people are perpetrating it.
Yeah, but if you
because it expresses the intention of the institution.
Yeah,
Okay,
but
it's that simple.
if you establish an analogy between that and a situation where not only do you explicitly swear loyalty to, I forget, was it Elmo or Cook, whatever. Well, Elmo, sure. You explicitly swear loyalty to Elmo, and Elmo has been spending the last like 10 years really fucking railing on this particular
About Cookie
demographic,
Monster,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, that's not going to be analogous to the situation that you're
But
describing.
the thing
with
is,
Ukraine.
Hitler did not make the mass extermination of Jews public.
Well, he certainly said that it was a problem that would have to be solved, right? I don't see
No
many
one knew.
solutions
No
there.
one knew it. Nobody knew that was going to be
Oh,
extermination.
come on, man! What? How many
It's not that
possible,
everyone knew
look,
that was going to be extermination
okay,
camps.
hey, let's use your example, right? He gets on stage, Elmo, and says, we need to answer the the Cookie Monster question. How many different fucking things could he possibly fucking mean? There's
One
like
of the plans was the deportation of Jewish people to Madagascar,
which is still bad. Which is still
right.
bad.
Okay, sure, but it's not
Right.
relevant. It doesn't matter if it's good or bad. It's not relevant to the point.
Actually,
Use
no,
logic.
no, but it does. But it does.
Why?
Right? The point. Well, because you just agreed that's like a reasonable.
Because deportation to Madagascar is not the same thing as extermination camps. That's why it doesn't matter.
Well, I agree with you there. But
They're both bad, sure, but they're not the same thing.
Just relax for a second. The reason it's disanalogous is because you're trying to make an analogy between that and like Ukraine and these battalions, but there is no similar situation in Ukraine. There's nobody in the Ukrainian administration saying we need to get rid of Cookie Monster.
Okay, you would have
that's
to.
the disanalogy.
I'm not saying there's a Holocaust going on in Ukraine right now. What I'm
It
trying to
seems like
tell...
you're getting very close to implying it. No offense.
Oh my god, you are genuinely a stupid fuck. You're just like not
Okay.
smart. You're just not intelligent. I'm sorry, you would fail out of law school. You would never even pass the LSAT. Pogan, what I'm trying to
I'm a
say,
PhD physicist.
what it doesn't matter. You're a dumb fuck. You would never be allowed in law school. Pogan, what we're talking about is not whether there's directly a Holocaust going on in Ukraine. We're talking very abstractly about whether the numbers of an organization or an institution can define its intentions. If 7.5% are neo-Nazis, what you have to prove is that their neo-Nazi character is merely incidental and that the institution is deploying them for ends that are not themselves defined by the neo-Nazi ideology.
No. The point is, you were trying to establish an analogy between Ukraine as it exists today with all these battalions and Nazi.
No,
Nazi
I gave up on the Nazi thing because I know you're a dumb, stupid
doesn't
fuck
change
with
the fact that you
shit
were
in your
trying to make the
ears.
analogy.
So I gave up on the Nazi analogy and I made up my own Elmo Cookie Monster thing. Okay,
So you agree
just
that
so we
Nazi
could.
thing is disanalogous, right?
No, it is analogous, but you can't understand the analogy, so I
What's the
tried to simplify the analogy for you.
Why is my objection to the analogy wrong?
Because you are making it seem like I am claiming the analogy is along the lines of their actions being the same thing, rather than the question.
I didn't say that.
Yes, you did. You said, well, there's no genocide going, or there's no Holocaust going on in Ukraine right now.
That wasn't the reason I cited for the disanalogy.
You cited the disanalogy because Hitler was knowingly, he was known to be an anti-Semite, and everyone in the armed forces had to swear allegiance to him.
The disanalogy is that when they became Wehrmacht or whatever,
okay, can you look on my stream, because I'm gonna just Microsoft Paint this for you because you're a stupid fuck. Like, you need visual learning, so let's just do visual learning, right?
I'm actually well. Problem is
open the stream. We'll do visual learning. Okay.
I'm on an Etch-a-Sketch. I can't. There is no stream.
Do visual learning. Okay. So we're gonna do this very simply, right?
I just want you to understand.
Hitler. We're gonna do this very simply. So here we have.
All right.
We have Hitler. Hitler's open anti-Semitism, right? Hitler's open anti-Semitism. All all army
you understand? I'm not
shut up. Allegiance to him. Okay. All army swearing allegiance to him. Okay, this is how the analogy is based on each layer. Okay, all army swearing allegiance to him, and then a proportion committing the crime, genocide. Right. Okay, so 1, 2, and 3. Right. Let's label them for you.
You understand? I'm not looking at this.
Well, you can look at it. There's no excuse for you not to.
I can't.
You literally can.
I have an Etch-a-Sketch.
Okay, someone take a screenshot of it when I'm done and post it in the Discord so he can see it.
Thank you. You have such good fans. Thank you.
So 1, 2, and 3, right? Then we're gonna do this. We're gonna do this one, right?
I don't know.
Ukrainian government, ideology irrelevant.
Just so I know, Haas, what's your bedtime, roughly?
No, I'm explaining this to you. Irrelevant.
That wasn't my question. It's 11 p.m. on the East Coast, man. I've
irrelevant.
Got work in the morning.
Ukrainian armed forces answering to state. Let's just say Ukrainian state, so we're less ambiguous. Answering to state orders to a
my mom's
proportion.
if this runs over
a proportion being.
I'm just telling you now.
A significant proportion being neo-Nazi. So as you can see, we have these labeled 1, 2, and 3, right? So 1 here is 1. So a significant proportion being neo-Nazi is analogous to the proportion committing the Holocaust, okay? And the reason it's analogous is not because...
Did you get a new haircut?
The reason the reason they're analogous...
Pause for a second, I got him. Sorry, go ahead, continue, please.
So do you concede the debate?
What? No.
So have you lost... Are you unable to comprehend what I'm trying to say?
Well, they just posted it for me, so let me read. Just Hitler's open anti-Semitism, swearing allegiance, fucking proportion committing the crime. Ukrainian state, Ukrainian armed forces answering to state orders, significant proportion being neo-Nazi. Wait a second, why is the official ideology of the Ukrainian state irrelevant?
Because you cannot extrapolate from Hitler's open anti-Semitism a necessary conclusion at least at the time, as far as the soldiers in that army knew of the extermination. If the analogy,
I didn't say
if the
genocide.
hypothetical is true.
I merely said that he was like explicitly anti-Jew and had expressed that he wanted
Yep,
to solve
Pogan, let me
some
explain
sort of
something to
problem.
you. Now, it used to be very
Yeah.
common. I'm going to explain something to you. It's not going to sound relevant at first, but you're going to see why it is.
Okay.
In
Yep.
old Europe, anti-Semitism was very common.
You understand though that
Oh,
is.
shut the fuck up and let me finish this.
You don't have to. Hey, I'm just
Okay,
saying.
I'll
you
mute.
don't
I'll
wanna
mute the
misrepresent.
pig. I'll mute
Just
the
don't
pig.
straw
Keep,
man me.
oink 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 oink. You're muted. Okay. Anti-Semitism used to be very, very prominent in Europe. The reason it stopped being as open or prominent as it used to be is because of the Holocaust, which means in no way was Hitler's open anti-Semitism or ideology enough to know he was going to commit the Holocaust. It was a huge shock and surprise to the entire world, which changed the nature of how anti-Semitism was received forever. Okay? That's what I'm trying to say.
Am I unmuted? Hello?
Yeah, you're unmuted now.
Sick. So the point of me bringing that up when you expressed the analogy initially, just to correct the record because you strawmanned me, is to point out that there's a significant difference between 7.5% of a standing military engaging in neo-Nazism explicitly and therefore somehow magically, esoterically having an influence on the rest of the standing military such that
I can describe.
Just let me finish. Come on, you've been talking all night. And such that they're partial to the ideology of neo-Nazism, right? Versus a military that is very explicitly subscribing to the ideology because the guy they're fucking directly swearing loyalty to has been saying for like years that the Jews are a problem that they need to get rid of, right? That's the reason to think it's disanalogous, because if you'll recall, your initial claim at the outset of all of this was something to the effect of, well, I think the Ukrainian military Ukrainian government slash deep state is a Nazi institution, and the reason I think that, at least one reason, is that
Keyword, at least one.
Well, sure, fine. But one of the many reasons that you supposedly have to believe that is that there are these battalions which are neo-Nazi and they're somehow influencing all these other elements of these other 200,000 people
there's
that
two
are in the military.
prongs.
Just so you understand, right? You see why that would be disanalogous if conditional, right? If the claim is that somehow we're supposed to believe that at its core, the fucking Ukrainian deep state government, whatever you call it, is an explicitly neo-Nazi institution. You understand why that's a problem if you're doing like an induction.
Okay.
It doesn't follow. It's not cogent.
Can you actually Pogan, I've listened to you very, very carefully because I want to rip you apart. You don't listen to anything I say, so listen very carefully, Pogan.
How is CPI? Can you tell me?
There's two prongs. Listen very carefully. Two prongs. Listen very carefully if you want to even have a chance in this debate. Two prongs. The first one. It is not true that I claim that they magically influenced the Ukrainian armed forces as the 7.5%. I've been trying to explain how they do, but you keep cutting me off. I would be more than happy to give you more examples of how this influence and how the mechanism of this influence is concerned. But the only thing... Shut the fuck up! Because I let you talk, Pogan. I let you fucking oink, oink, oink like a pig for a long time, so let me talk now. All I wanted to do is prove that them being 7.5% alone does not discount the possibility of that influence. I was more than happy to name you examples of that influence. Okay? The second point, with
respect to the analogy, though.
The second point with respect to the analogy, there's two prongs to this. The second point is that is making the assumption that Hitler's anti-Semitic ideology was known to be the extermination camps of the Holocaust, which it wasn't.
Did you know that?
What?
I'm 6'3". Did you know that?
So you're conceding.
You don't care because you absolutely do.
Wait, so you're conceding. Hold on. So you're conceding.
I didn't concede.
I just gave you my rebuttal, and that's how you respond?
You're refuting a straw man. What do you want me to respond to?
What is the straw? How is it a straw man?
The straw man is saying that I ever at any point was talking about just genocide explicitly, when I merely said all that's necessary for the analogy to break down is that in one case they're not explicitly subscribing to some X ideology, and in the other case they are. That's sufficient.
But the analogy was not along the axis of the ideologies, which I even muted you to clarify.
Hey, easy, cowboy. This isn't fucking modern day debate, okay? Just chill out. The point is, that's sufficiently disanalogous to make the point break down, because you're trying to say...
Let me know when you shut the fuck up. Let me know when you shut the fuck up.
Oh, I'm happy to.
Yeah.
That you're trying to say that's reason to think that, like, we can conclude that the Ukrainian deep state is somehow explicitly neo-Nazi, but you haven't actually presented some sort of analogous reasoning to make that conclusion probabilistically.
You fucked up the whole thing. The analogy was not, you just saw the Microsoft Paint, look at it again. I am not comparing the subscription to neo-Nazi ideology in Ukraine to the subscription of Nazi ideology in the German army.
Are you going to tell me how CPI was ever? Looked like a
so are you, Pogan, the more snide remarks you make, the more you're admitting you lost this debate.
I'm waiting for you to respond to the point I actually made.
Do I have to mute you? If I mute you, will you listen to what I say?
I mean, you're attacking a straw man.
You didn't even hear what I said. How would you know if it's a straw man or not?
How could I not hear you? You've been fucking screaming into the mic.
So, Pogan, I'm not comparing ideology of Nazism to the in Germany to the ideology of the neo-Nazism in Ukraine. I'm comparing the Holocaust, just as an abstract analogy, about how a minority of the people in an institution can do things or have positions.
Not the minority in the German case. That's the point.
Okay, but hypothetically, if it was, you already conceded that it would define the institution's intention. Hold on, Pogan. Even if it wasn't a minority of the Nazi party or the institution of the German state, whatever you want to call it, if it was a minority in a hypothetical scenario, you yourself conceded that it would make the Nazi party and define the Nazi party as not only culpable, but it would be defined by that action.
Yeah, but the point is, even in the Elmo Cookie Monster, whatever the fuck case, you tried to present the same exact analogy, just with different pronouns, right? It's the same exact setup. And
right, because I was trying to... because it's an abstract hypothetical.
What is this fucking... What is this, breakfast?
Pogan, how many times have you interrupted me in this? If you want, Pogan... Hold on, Pogan, I can let you talk uninterrupted if you can commit and promise to do the same to me. How about that?
Sure, yeah.
Okay, then don't interrupt me again. I won't interrupt you. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think I've explained several times what the disanalogy is. I'll go over it again because I think the audience is like kind of paying attention just a teeny little bit. So here we go. You're trying to say that there's this 30% component of the Ukrainian National Guard, 7.5% of the overall standing military, and this is supposed to be representative of the Ukrainian deep state being explicitly neo-Nazi, right? And in order to present this argument, you did analogical reasoning with Nazi Germany, and you were appealing to like the Wehrmacht and the military and whatever. But the problem is this, right? Unless you have some other piece of evidence you'd like to supply, in the Ukrainian case, merely having these 7.5% of the overall military be neo-Nazi does not implicitly or explicitly mean, barring a further argument, that the rest of the Ukrainian military is neo-Nazi sympathetic. In the case of Germany, not only are they like obviously in an environment where the entire regime and government and everything has been cultivated such that they're subscribing to Nazi party ideology, they actually explicitly swear allegiance and loyalty to Adolf Hitler, a guy who for like 5 to 10 years has been railing against the Jews very publicly and very violently and very explicitly, which means in the German case, we do have reason to think that the German standing military would very, very, very likely be sympathetic to the ideology of Hitler. In the Ukrainian case, we don't possess the same reasoning. Hence the disanalogy. Please proceed, Haas. Go ahead.
Okay, so I want you to actually listen carefully because you just looped again, and I'm going to explain to you why you looped. It's very simple, okay? Now, first of all, I am not saying that just because 7.5% are there, without any further details or context, that this means the Ukrainian armed forces as a whole is neo-Nazi. The context of that 7.5% is what's decisive to the argument here, and what they actually do and what they are for in regards to the Ukrainian armed forces, okay? That's what I made that very clear from the very start. Second of all, I never actually discounted that the whole of the, let's say, German army during World War II was anti-Semitic or was sympathetic or subscribed to Hitler's ideology because they swore allegiance to him. What I made very clear, though, was that subscribing to Hitler's ideology at that time was not necessarily the same thing as committing the act of the Holocaust and the extermination of Jews and the camps, okay? Now, even if it was, for as a matter of historical fact, just refer back to my hypothetical in which this wasn't the case and in which it was only 2% and 98% had no idea. It is not true that... See, what your issue, Pogan, is that you're trying to make it seem like I'm saying that the German military vis-a-vis Nazi ideology is the same as the Ukrainian military vis-a-vis Ukrainian neo-Nazi ideology. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that the perpetration of the Holocaust relative to the institution of the Nazi Party, assuming only 9% were culpable or directly perpetrating it, I should say, is relevant vis-a-vis the 7.5%. And the reason I'm saying that is not to draw the conclusion that it's necessarily true that just because there's 7.5%, that means an institution is going to be defined in a certain way. The point is, it is more than easily possible for 7.5% of an institution to define the nature of that institution. Not even just the ideology, but even when it comes to moral culpability in actions. Your inability to hear this argument probably reflects the fact, and you have to focus really hard here, Pogan, you are genuinely a stupid person. You are not a smart person. Simple as that.
Are you done?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I never, you strawmanned me again in that rebuttal. I never said it was like the Holocaust in terms of extermination, right? I merely said that all that would be necessary for some member of the German military to come to the conclusions that I'm referring to
What conclusions, and
is
why
to
are they
just wait. I
relevant?
thought we weren't interrupting each other. Is to just come to the, it's just like pay attention to any one of his public speeches that even remotely mentioned the Jews for over the course of like 5 years, right? They agreed with his ideology and the party line, at least on some level. You could infer that merely by agreeing to be a part of the party, because as you and I agreed, they swear loyalty to Hitler, who was the chancellor, right? And he's not very quiet about what he believes with respect to the Jews. And the problem there is exactly what I've been pointing out is the disanalogy this whole time. The Ukrainian armed forces, you can't make the same inference that they agree with the ideology and the party line merely because of the evidence that you presented, which was just the 7.5% or 30%, right? You have to supply a further argument to think that that Ukrainian deep state is a Nazi institution if you're using the existence of these battalions as evidence for that. You haven't given an argument. That's the disanalogy. You strawmanned me again with the Holocaust extermination
Okay.
thing. I never fucking said that.
Pogan,
Um,
Pogan, Pogan,
you're 4 foot
Pogan,
seven. I'm 6'3". I
Pogan,
mean, what
Pogan,
else? What else do you
Pogan.
want from
That's
me?
okay. It's okay. You conceded. Pogan. I'm
I
going to
didn't
repeat this.
conceded to what? Why are
Yes, you
you
did. You
saying
did. You
this?
did concede to me because
What?
I
What did I
made it
concede
very
to?
clear that no one denied that the German military was anti-Semitic or agreed with Hitler ideologically. It is not under contention. What is under contention is the question of their culpability in the Holocaust in this hypothetical. And it's a hypothetical, Pogan. Stop talking about the direct thing because the direct thing doesn't matter. Just imagine, look, okay, don't mention the Germany again because you're confused about it. Talk about my Elmo and Cookie Monster analogy. It is not relevant what their ideology was in this case because the object of relevance here is about the Holocaust, not the ideology. We all agree that they were all anti-Semitic and they agreed with Hitler's views about Jews and all that kind of stuff. That is not a one-to-one. That doesn't allow us to draw the conclusion that they directly perpetrated the Holocaust, and that is it's simple as that.
Do you agree that saying that I think like standing members of the German military subscribing to the Holocaust in terms of extermination, like yeah, like you agree? I never said that, right?
If you're not saying that, then you're not saying anything relevant to the. If you concede to me that, then why are you bringing up that they agree
How
with
is it a
Hitler?
concession to get you to clarify that I never
Because
said
that
something?
was the crux of that was my analogy. My analogy
No, it
was
wasn't.
with regard to their proximity to the perpetration of the Holocaust, not their ideology.
No, no, no. The conversation went, hey, I don't think there's reason to think the Ukrainian deep state is Nazi based on, like Nazi sympathetic or a Nazi institution based on this evidence, right? And then we cited the numbers: the 30% National Guard, the 7.5%. And then at that point, you threw out the analogy with Germany. You're like, oh, okay, Pogan. So you think, oh, you don't think like the German military was like Nazi sympathetic just because 9% actively
No,
participated in the
no.
Holocaust?
I
And
didn't
that's
say
when I
Nazis. I
explained,
did not say Nazi sympathetic. What I said was
you
their
know what I mean,
culpability.
though. Don't
No,
be don't be so hard
I
Nazis.
don't, because I did not say whether they were sympathetic to Nazi views. I said whether they were directly culpable, whether more specifically the Nazi party is defined by the Holocaust.
Yeah, and I never said that just
So it's
by
about
being a member.
institutions
But
and
that's the straw.
people.
Wait. That's the straw man. I never said merely by being in the German military that I think like every single fucking person was signing up to participate
I'm
in the
glad you
Holocaust. That's
don't think
stupid.
that. I'm glad you don't think that, but you've just conceded
You
to me
said I
the.
did.
Hold on.
You
Because
said
you.
I did. That's the straw man that I've been pointing
No,
out for
no,
20
that's not.
minutes.
That's not what I said you did. I think
Yes, you
you're.
did. I can
No,
look at the
Pogan,
recording.
Pogan. What you were saying was that they weren't signing up for the Holocaust, but that they were signing up for Hitler's ideology, which is true, but that's not relevant to my analogy.
I just don't
So,
understand why you're so upset when I'm the one trying to tell you what I actually said, and you seem so like befuddled about
because
the
what
statements
you
I made.
said does not address my analogy.
Yes, it does directly.
No, it
You've
doesn't,
explained
because
how it
hold
does
on,
three
Pogan, you just
times.
contradicted yourself. Nowhere in my analogy am I equating perpetrating the Holocaust with subscribing to the Nazi ideology at the
No, you're
time.
still confused. The disanalogy is the difference between making some sort of inference about 7.5%, 30%, whatever, having a neo-Nazi ideology, and the Ukrainian deep state being an explicitly Nazi institution, versus people participating in an institution that is not only open about its political ideology and
Yeah, but
beliefs, but in order, I'm almost done. Remember, we're not going
that's
to
not
interrupt
on.
each
Just
other.
don't finish that because I know what you're gonna
I
say,
thought the rule.
Pogan. It's not
I thought we were going
relevant
to
to the
interrupt each other.
analogy.
Haas, why can't you follow your own rules?
Go ahead, waste our time, Pogan.
You're a very forgiving person. I thank you for that. The point is, by joining the German military, by being in the Wehrmacht, the SS, whatever, by being like a card-carrying member of the Nazi Party, what have you, there are two relevant differences there that are not going to work in the analogy. The first is that you know damn well, right, what Hitler thinks about the Jews. The second is you are explicitly swearing loyalty and allegiance to that very fucking guy.
Okay.
Neither of those things, right, exist in the case of Ukraine, yet you're trying to say that this is some sort of analogical reasoning that you can use to conclude that the Ukrainian government slash deep state is an explicitly neo-Nazi institution. It just doesn't work that way, my friend.
Okay. I'm gonna be very quiet and careful with you. That is not my analogy, Pogan. My analogy is not about Nazi ideology. It's not, the ideology thing is not relevant to anything I've said. I said, if 9% of the Nazi party committed the Holocaust only, that's still going to define the Nazi party as an institution, as a Holocaust committing institution. Okay? If 7.5% of the Ukrainian armed forces are neo Nazis, that has the possibility, and I'm not saying by default, because again, you may make the argument that the neo Nazism is incidental to the overall aims of the institution, but it has the possibility, definitely, of defining the institution of the Ukrainian deep state as Nazified. That is literally that is what I said from the very start. You talking about the ideology of the Nazi party and the ideology of the Wehrmacht is not relevant. It's Pogan. Before you loop in like an NPC, say the same thing. You've said the same things dozens and dozens of times. What you said is not relevant to my analogy. And my analogy has nothing to do with the ideological loyalties of the Nazi party or the Wehrmacht. It has to do with their actions relative and in regards to the Holocaust.
Are you done?
Yeah.
When you throw out evidence like there's X% neo-Nazi battalions, whatever, right? When the original claim is something like Ukraine's government deep state is explicitly neo-Nazi,
Yeah.
what you're saying, you're performing an induction, right? I'll walk you through this. You're saying that that raises the probability of your initial claim being true, right? You're supplying it as evidence, and yet
With
now
added
when you're,
context.
I thought we weren't interrupt. Why?
Because you're
We're
wasting
friends
time.
here.
Only
We're
with
friends. No,
added
I'm not.
context.
Wait, just please. I beg of you, Sultan Haz the Cruel. Please allow me to finish my claim. Thank you. Now you're merely saying, though, that it's possible when you appeal to the battalions that the Ukrainian deep state is like neo-Nazi, right? So you're actually walking back the initial claim because you're no longer performing an induction at all. You're merely saying you're invoking some sort of weird possibility.
Okay.
So just for clarity, are you saying it is evidence for Ukraine being deep state neo-Nazi, or it's not evidence?
With added context, it is evidence. In a vacuum, it is not evidence, but we're not operating in
So
a
the
vacuum.
thing we've been, just to clarify, the thing we've been talking about for like an hour is not evidence unless you supply other evidence.
No, I don't need to necessarily just supply other evidence. I need to address the context of that
If
evidence.
you are not comfortable supplying this as evidence on its own, like in a vacuum, as you said, why not merely invoke the other evidence instead of arguing with me
Because
about
it's
an
not about
analogy
other
that doesn't
evidence,
work?
it's about knowing about the actual context of the evidence. So Pogan, you claim you have a PhD in physics, so you're used to working in vacuums. That's not
I was joking. It was a
okay.
joke.
Well, sure, but that's not how real life works. Real life is not like physics where it's all just vacuums. Real life is actually not
It was a
everything.
joke, Haas. I was
Okay,
joking.
real life isn't evidence in a vacuum. All evidence in real life is oversaturated with context. And that context is crucial to the very structure of that evidence. Okay?
Yeah.
So, in the case of, well, okay, on its own, 30% being neo Nazi isn't enough, but when you add the actual context of that 30% or that 7.5%, it does actually add to my argument. It does add
Right.
to
So
the
it's
over.
like I said, the evidence
It
is
adds to
something
the
outside the
overall
evidence.
picture. Hold on. It adds to the overall picture that I'm painting, which we haven't even had. You haven't even let me discuss more details about that because you've been focusing on the 7.5%.
Well, it's because I was correcting strawmans and pointing
No,
out
you
the
weren't,
analogy
because you
doesn't
were
work.
saying the 7.5% is not strong evidence. Well,
No,
how do you
what I
know it's
said,
not?
when you supplied an analogical argument, I broke down that argument. Now
Wait,
you're
you
telling
didn't.
me
Hold
that
on, Pogan.
now you're
Pogan,
telling me
you
that the
broke
argument
down
failed.
nothing. You
Now
broke
you're
down
telling me,
nothing because I
just
proved to
hey,
you
hey,
either you
you're my
never
favorite streamer,
comprehended the
Haas.
analogy or
Haas,
you
why
were
do you want to
just
lose a
wrong about
subscriber?
it.
Sorry,
You broke down nothing, Pogan.
I was having a moment because my favorite streamer was yelling at me. The point is, if you spent so much time trying to supply an analogical argument for this piece of evidence, only to then come to me and say, actually, in order for it to be effective evidence, it requires further evidence, which is what you really mean by
Which is
context.
no, it's not what I mean by context.
Exactly. Come on, don't fuck with me. You know that's exactly what you
Other
mean.
evidence is like factually verified discrete datum.
What does that
Okay,
matter?
context relates to the actual structure of evidence. Now, you don't know the distinction of those things because you're either not a knowledgeable person or you're too much of a fucking idiot to put together what that could
Do you
possibly
think
mean.
Dunbar's number is a defeater for communism then, by the same token?
I don't know what that is.
Really? You don't think like the presence of Russian sympathetic or Soviet sympathetic people in Donbass or whatever can work in the same exact way that you're appealing to with respect to these Ukrainian neo-Nazis, the presence of ideologies that
Wait,
justify some sort of Russian
sorry.
invasion?
Am I denying that the people in Donbass are overwhelmingly sympathetic to Soviet ideology and communism? Because I'm not.
I didn't ask if you were denying it. I'm saying, do you think the same sort of reasoning could be applied?
Uh, yeah, why not?
Oh, okay. So then it's just
Wait,
like
what
I like
form of
this.
reasoning?
Well, presumably Ukraine doesn't want them to like secede or be Russia
I think
sympathetic,
that
right?
in the same way that Ukraine is neo-Nazi, the Ukrainian state is neo-Nazi, by the
Well, that's a
same
claim that hasn't been defended.
okay, but by the same
speak clear.
standard, you could also say that the Donbass is sympathetic to Soviet ideology. I would never deny that.
No. That's you can't say that like the statement one, Ukrainian deep state is neo-Nazi.
Whether
Statement
it's
two,
proven or not is irrelevant.
hold the train. Statement two, Donbass is possibly, or sorry, Donbass is like Russia Soviet sympathetic rather than being explicitly Soviet or
Okay, then let me
pro-Russia, right?
rephrase it.
That's
Then
actually
okay, in the same okay,
I think we should rename the stream Infradisanalogy. That's more fitting. I got to be honest. Sultan, I can't think of a joke
Hogan,
there. Let's just continue.
you are
I had a
such a
joke there.
fucking idiot, it's baffling. Let me rephrase it then. In the same way that the Ukrainian state is Nazi sympathetic, the Donbass is Soviet ideology sympathetic. Or let me rephrase.
Trotsky predicted the extermination.
Hold on. Shut the fuck up. Let me even predict it even further, right? In the same way that the Ukrainian deep state is Nazified, that the Donbass republics are Sovietized. I have no problem saying that. So what you deemed as like an essential, what you deemed as an essential component of my analogy, which was the keyword sympathetic, proved itself to be entirely inessential. Pogan, you would fail the LSAT. You'd never be allowed in law school. You are genuinely a almost naturally stupid person.
I mean, you still provided an analogical argument that doesn't bear out or raise
Why not?
probability. Well, we've explained that for the last hour.
Wait, but hold on, Pogan. You asked
the two factors that I presented in the case of Germany, right, are absolutely
were not relevant.
Crucial.
The ideology thing was not relevant.
Wait, don't say that because that's sorry, burp. That's dishonest. They're absolutely crucial and relevant because you're talking about whether or not we can come to some sort of justified conclusion about the ideologies held by each respective regime.
No, I'm not. I am not talking about.
And by extension, the people that serve in.
I am talking about the Nazi Party's culpability in the Holocaust, not its ideology.
No, what you said was if you think that 7.5% of the Ukrainian armed forces being explicitly neo-Nazi is not reason to conclude that the Ukrainian deep state is a Nazi institution, right? What do you think about? And that's when you threw the Nazi Germany card out.
Pogan, the thing is that's not what I said. Exactly.
Pogan,
well, sure, the record supports me, though.
I understand, it's okay.
Pogan,
we all take our own time.
The only thing that saves you on Twitch is I'm not allowed to say slurs. So understand that,
Whoa.
Okay? Yeah.
Whoa.
I'm talking about, like the R word. Yeah,
okay.
like the R word, whatever.
Hey,
Pogan, that's okay.
Jesus Christ,
Pogan,
dude.
that's okay. I can't call you the R word. That's okay. Listen, Pogan.
Wow.
Pogan, let me tell you something.
I don't think you're my favorite streamer anymore.
I don't care. Pogan, let me tell you something, okay? What I said initially is that just because there's 7.5% doesn't mean it can't be strong evidence. It depends on the
work in the morning.
It depends on the structure of that evidence.
Timer.
It depends on the structure of that evidence. Just because it's 7.5% doesn't mean it's not strong evidence, because the 9% in the Nazi Party, in a or Elmo's army, let's say, that was decisive in exterminating Cookie Monster or whatever, or I don't know, what's another character? Big Birds or whatever, right? That in no way.
Did you actually watch Sesame Street? It seems like you're just a LARPer.
That in no way does that discount the strength of that evidence. It depends on what that 7.5% is doing. You can't say it's not strong evidence unless you know the context in which that evidence is being presented.
No. The reason we'll go over it again. I understand people work on things at their
talk again about the Nazi ideology. Please go ahead.
Well, the reason to think it's disanalogous Jesus, I'm tired. The reason to think it's disanalogous, once again, is because there's two crucial factors that are being added in the case of Germany that are not present in the case of Ukraine, such that they would dramatically influence the probability of the conclusion.
Then forget about Germany and use my Sesame Street example.
So you agree it's disanalogous. Thank you, Haas.
No, it's not disanalogous because the essential Pogan, it may as well be a hypothetical because the essential component of my analogy has nothing to do with the historical.
They say you can't concede. I appreciate the
Pogan. It's not disanalogous because the essential components of the analogy can be distilled into an abstract hypothetical.
You're arguing for a negative, right? You can't prove the Ukrainian government isn't Nazi sympathetic, so gotcha, Pogan, right?
No, I'm not. I would
absolutely are.
I would more than be happy to move on to illustrate more evidence in the direction of the government being
Nazified.
Exactly
what you're doing, buddy. Haas? Come on, look. Let's.
No, I'm not, Pogan. I'm opening. Listen, Pogan. You're saying 7.5% is not strong evidence. I'm saying it is strong evidence when you actually.
What are the reasons I don't think it's strong evidence? Can you repeat them to me?
Because you're trying to put the numbers in a vacuum.
Nope, wrong.
Why isn't it strong evidence? You haven't
been tracking anything.
So why isn't it strong evidence?
Because the two crucial factors that would dramatically raise the probability of the conclusion being true, you cannot substantiate in the case of Ukraine.
What are the two necessary factors?
We've gone over that about 9 times.
Wait, so you're trying to make like a necessary analogy in which it would have to be the same as...
What's a necessary analogy when we're talking about probability?
Because what you're trying to say now is you're trying to say unless the German armed forces bear the same relationship to the Ukrainian deep state officially, which is obviously impossible because the deep state is not official, to the German armed forces in regards to the Nazi Party or Hitler himself.
This isn't correct either.
So those two factors are what? Swearing allegiance to the ideology? And what
factors
else?
that you no, listen. They're factors that you presented in an analogical argument to substantiate
What
your
are the
claim,
factors I presented?
We've
Exactly.
been over that. They're the two I'm referencing.
The only factors I presented that were essentialized in my analogy were this: a minority of the Nazi Party, whether it's true or not.
What do you mean by essentialized?
Like, it's literally this simple. A minority of an institution can easily define the character of that institution.
Huh? That has nothing to do with the analogy, though.
Why?
The analogy was that, well, because you were trying to say...
Because, okay, if a minority of Nazis...
I guess he doesn't want an answer to the question.
If a minority of Nazis commit the Holocaust, that is more than easily enough for that minority to define the institution of the Nazi Party.
No. That has nothing to do with it.
But that's what I said. But that's what I said initially.
I understand you're getting scared and you're like realizing...
But that's what I said initially, Pogan. Who's scared of what? That's what I said initially.
Sleep. It's okay. Listen. The point is, you presented an analogical argument, right? An analogical argument is designed to increase the probability of a conclusion being true. Why? Because there's analogical properties such that if you think something's true in one case, you would have to say it's true in the other case, or at least be compelled to say it's true. Except the problem
what did I say exactly?
We're getting there. Trust me.
And provide evidence of what I said. Please put it in fact checking. No. Get a clip of exactly what I said and put it in fact checking.
Just settle down.
Get the clip so we can look at the evidence of what I said.
You said in the case of Ukraine, there's these 7.5% whatever battalions that are neo-Nazi. Therefore, it increases the probability of the Ukrainian deep state. The Ukrainian deep state being neo-Nazi, and you analogized this to the Germany example, where there's people joining the German military, and even though it's a minority of people involved in like the Holocaust or what have you, right? You can still conclude that the government is sympathetic to that agenda or the party ideology. Or whatever.
I'm denying I'm denying that I said that.
Well, I mean, that's just, I don't know what to say to that. That's
because you omitted something, Pogan. What actually happened was, first I pointed out the overrepresentation of neo-Nazi battalions in the Ukrainian National Guard. Okay, then you said, well, that's only 7.5% of the total, so that's not strong evidence. And I said,
no, incorrect.
No,
that's not all I said. That's
what else did you say?
When I said that it was merely 7.5% and I added the strong, it's not strong evidence statement, I gave a reason to think it's not strong evidence, right?
What was your reason?
It's not merely the number, it's the number coupled with the fact that, and this is where we've gotten into trouble.
No, my analogy didn't start. Don't mention the analogy.
Don't get emotional. Just listen, right? Try to listen for once. The point
guys, hold on. Let me guys, this is what happens when I don't yell.
Help me,
this is what happens when I don't yell over these fucking soy boy pieces of shit cucks, is that they constantly fucking gesture around and they do this fucking bullshit. Pogan, finish what you were going to say.
No, Chad. Okay, sure, thank you. Anyway, point is, I didn't merely say it was the number that made it weak evidence. I said it was the number coupled with the fact that you're trying to make a claim like that in induction without the connective tissue such that the number has any bearing on the probability of the deep state, Ukrainian deep state being neo-Nazi. And then, remember, let's keep track here. Remember, you then presented the analogical argument with Germany, and I said, well, Haas, that's disanalogous, X, Y, Z reasons. And then you lost. That
would be nice if it was true, but it's not. Because what actually happened was that...
We can just look back in the recording.
Okay, we can look back. When you asked me for connective tissue, I didn't respond with the analogy. I responded by actually giving you connective tissue about the overall... I talked about Maripol in 2015. I gave you plenty of connective tissue at the time, which you just completely ignored. And then I said, Pogan, there's nothing... It's more than possible for 7.5% to be able to define an institution. Just look at the case...
Probable, which is it?
It's because more than it's. Hold on. No, it's about possibility because it's more than possible.
Oh, so it's possible. Okay. Well, congratulations.
Yeah, it's more than possible.
It's possible a Victoria's Secret model is going to walk in the door right now and blow me. Is it more probable based on some evidence that you're supplying, or is it just possible?
Okay, you're claiming it's improbable, right? Or whatever you said that's 7.5%.
You
said the 7. Hold on, Pogan. What you said is the 7.5% is not strong evidence.
Where's James when you need him? Go ahead.
You said the 7.5% is not strong evidence.
That's correct, yes.
Yeah.
But I didn't make...
Then you asked me for connective tissue. I gave you connective tissue, and I coupled that connective tissue by saying there's nothing about it being 7.5% that indicates that this is not as proportional.
The connective tissue that you offered was an analogous.
No, it wasn't. The connective tissue that I offered was the Azov taking Mariupol in 2015.
Don't get emotional.
Pogan, you are a fucking liar. The connective tissue I offered was the overrepresentation of these neo-Nazi forces in the Ukrainian armed forces.
Help! Don't get emotional, please. All right, are you okay?
Pogan, Twitch TOS is the only thing that saves you. It's the only thing that saves you. Pogan.
Are you implying a death threat or something?
You're a pig. You're a pig.
Oh,
you're a fucking
mad,
pig.
Boys. This is
you're
the
a fucking
I've seen
pig.
This guy in a while,
you
dude.
fucking squeal like a pig, like a little fucking bitch. Every time I fucking corner you, you sound like a fucking laughing hyena, little bitch, Pogan. You've always been a little bitch, Pogan. Ever heard of that? Huh, you fucking fat pig? I gave you connective tissue. You ignored it. I supplemented the connective tissue, so giving you an example of how a minority can drastically define an organization. Just because it's 7.5% doesn't mean it can't be strong evidence. You just need to contextualize the evidence. That's what I fucking said. You haven't addressed a single one point of my fucking argument. Not once have we made any fucking progress, because you're too stupid to fucking understand what I'm even saying.
Pause. Chat. Infrared. It's been a fantastic evening.
Manhood conceded. Get the fuck out of here, bitch.
I'm not conceding.
You are conceding.
Statement, though.
Fuck out of here. You're not getting a closing statement, bitch. Get the fuck out of here.
4'7".
Get the fuck out of here with your fucking pigtail. Your squeal more oink oink with your pigtail between your fucking legs. Go ahead and run away, little bitch.
I'm still in the VC, though.
Okay, so are you not leaving then?
I have work at 8:30 a.m.
I don't give a fuck.
Okay. Yeah, I'll get fired for you, Haas. You're my favorite streamer.
Yeah,
got it.
Go ahead, you fucking pussy.
Can I make a statement or not? Are you gonna let me?
No, you can't make a closing statement. You either debate me or you don't.
Honest.
Debate me or run away, you little bitch.
I am debating you.
No, you're not. You're running away.
My position.
You're running away.
I was gonna summarize my position.
You have no position.
Are you not okay with that? What's my position? Oh, awesome. Okay, what's my position, Haas? Tell me. Go ahead.
Your position is that you're unable to understand any of the arguments I've actually forwarded throughout this entire debate.
You think that's my position? That's what you have
to say? That is objectively your position.
Do you think people outside of your chat take you to be a serious person?
I actually don't give a fuck.
I can tell. I
can
tell. Most people have at least some degree of dignity.
If you measure this mathematically, I won. Any formal standard of victory in terms of measuring our debates with regard to logic, I won.
Fuck, dude. All right, take it easy, AK-47. Have a good evening.
Fat fuck. Okay, you fat, ugly fucking pig fuck. You fucking fat fucking pig. Oink, oink more, Pogan. Fat fuck.